Welcome back to Coins Most Valuable. In today's video, we are diving into the fascinating history and value of the Roosevelt dime. These dimes may look small, but they hold big importance in U.S. coinage history, and many of them are far more valuable than their face value. From rare dates and mint marks to silver content and collectible variations, Roosevelt I dimes can surprise you with how much they are truly worth. That's why you should stay with me until the very end of this video, because I'll be sharing everything you need to know about these valuable coins. If you enjoy learning about rare and collectible coins, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and join our community of coin lovers so you never miss a video on valuable U.S. coins. Let's get started. First up, the 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is one of those coins that often gets overlooked, but in reality, it is a coin that deserves special attention. Even though it looks like an ordinary dime at first glance, the 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is a valuable piece of U.S. coinage history. In this video, we're going to talk in detail about why the 1978 Roosevelt dime is important, why the absence of a mint mark matters, and how this coin can actually be worth much more than just 10 cents. I encourage you to stay with me all the way through this video, because by the end you will understand why this dime is valuable and why coin collectors and treasure hunters are always on the lookout for coins like this. The Roosevelt dime itself has been in circulation since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt. From that time, the dime has gone through changes in composition and minting, but one detail that always attracts attention is the mint mark, or in some cases, the lack of a mint mark. For the 1978 Roosevelt dime, the absence of a mint mark is what makes it stand out to collectors. Normally, dimes are minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, and the mint mark tells us where the coin was produced. A coin without a mint mark, like the 1978 Roosevelt dime, points directly to the Philadelphia Mint. Collectors pay attention to this because Philadelphia minted coins without a mint mark can carry different values compared to other mint locations. Now, why is this important? Because the 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is not just a 10-cent coin. It can hold collectible value depending on its condition, rarity in circulation, and overall demand from coin collectors. The average person may look at a dime and think it's only worth 10 cents, but coin collectors know that certain years, certain details, and certain minting features can make a dime far more valuable. This is exactly the case with the 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark. Let's think about the bigger picture here. When you find a coin from 1978, you are holding a coin that has been around for nearly half a century. That in itself gives it historical importance. But when you add in the detail that it does not have a mint mark, it becomes a coin with a story to tell. Collectors appreciate coins with stories, and the Roosevelt dime from 1978 without a mint mark is a perfect example of a coin that may look ordinary, but actually has collectible significance. Many times, people search through their pocket change, old coin jars, or family collections, and they overlook coins like this. They think it's just an old dime, and spend it without even realizing that it has collectible value. That is why videos like this are so important, because they remind you to check your coins carefully. If you come across a 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark, do not just spend it as a regular dime. Take the time to set it aside and learn about its potential value. Another key detail about this coin is the way collectors assign value to it. While the Roosevelt dime from 1978 without a mint mark is not the rarest coin ever made, its value comes from condition and collector interest. If the coin has been well preserved and has minimal wear, it is worth more than a regular circulated coin. In higher grades, this dime can sell for several times its face value. Some examples in mint state condition are even more desirable, especially for those building complete sets of Roosevelt dimes. What's fascinating is how many people underestimate the Roosevelt dime series. These coins were produced in large quantities, but that does not mean that every example is common. The 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is an excellent case study in why collectors pay close attention to small details. Even the smallest feature, such as the presence or absence of a mint mark, can change the entire story of a coin's value. For those who are passionate about U.S. coins, It's not just about the metal value or the denomination. It's about the history, the details, and the connection to the past. The 1978 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, represents a time in American coinage when small details were especially important. Each dime produced at the Philadelphia Mint during that year contributed to a series that still circulates today. But the collectible ones are the well-preserved examples that carry higher value. If you are new to coin collecting, this dime is a great example of why it pays to look closely at your change. A coin from 1978 might not seem valuable at first, but if it has no mint mark and is in excellent condition, it can become a desirable collectible. This is why so many collectors recommend learning about the Roosevelt dime series and understanding what makes each year unique. The longer you study coins like the 1978 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark, the more you begin to see patterns in U.S. coinage. You see how production numbers, mint marks, condition, and collector demand all combine to create value. It's not just about rarity, it's about significance and demand in the numismatic market. The Roosevelt dime may seem small, but it represents a big part of coin collecting history. So, when you come across a dime from 1978 without a mint mark, remember that it is valuable, not only in the sense of its monetary value, but also in the sense of its historical and collectible importance. These dimes connect us to the late 1970s, to the long history of U.S. coin production, and to the story of President Roosevelt being honored on American coinage. Collectors and coin lovers see the bigger picture, and that is why coins like this are always worth saving. By now, you should see why the 1978 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, is far more than just pocket change. It is a collectible coin, a piece of U.S. history, and a valuable find for anyone who takes the time to look closely. Always remember that valuable coins are out there, often hiding in plain sight, and this dime is proof of that. Next up, the 1990 Roosevelt dime with the D mint mark is one of those coins that may seem ordinary at first glance, but when you take a closer look, you quickly realize that it is a valuable piece of American coinage history. This dime was struck at the Denver Mint, which is why it carries the D mint mark, just above the date on the obverse side. Many people spend these coins without even noticing that they can hold collectible value. But coin collectors know that even common-looking Roosevelt dimes can become valuable treasures depending on their condition, rarity in circulation, and demand from collectors. That is why the 1990 Roosevelt dime with the D mint mark is worth talking about in detail. And that is why you should stay with me all the way through this video as we explore why this coin is valuable. The Roosevelt dime series began in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and it has remained an essential part of American coinage ever since. By the time we reached the 1990 Roosevelt dime, the series had already been circulating for decades, but collectors still pay close attention to each date and mint mark combination. The D mint mark on the 1990 dime is important because it connects this coin directly to the Denver Mint, and coins from this mint often carry their own level of interest among collectors. Even though millions of dimes were produced in 1990, the fact remains that not all of them survive today in high-quality condition, and this is exactly where their collectible value begins to rise. When we think about a dime from 1990, we are thinking about a coin that has now been circulating for more than 3 decades. That kind of age may not seem extremely old, but in coin collecting terms, it is long enough for many examples to have worn down, been damaged, or simply disappeared from circulation. That makes the well-preserved examples of the 1990 Roosevelt dime with a D mint mark much more desirable to collectors. In fact, the better the condition, the higher the value. A coin that looks like it just left the mint is always going to be far more valuable than one that has seen heavy circulation. This is why coin collectors are always on the lookout for Roosevelt dimes from the late 20th century, including the 1990 dime with the D mint mark. They know that coins in mint state, coins with full details, and coins without scratches, or where it can be worth far more than face value. Even though it is only a 10-cent coin in circulation, it becomes a collectible item when it has those qualities. That is what makes the 1990 Roosevelt dime valuable, and that is why you should never overlook it if you happen to come across one in your change. What's especially interesting about the Roosevelt dime series is how it teaches us the importance of details. To the average person, A dime is just a dime, but to collectors, every date and every mint mark tells a story. The 1990 dime with a D mint mark is one of those coins that continues the story of U.S. coinage in the modern era. It shows us how the Denver Mint contributed to American coin production and how these small coins continue to play a big role in both daily commerce and collectible history. Now, let's take a closer look at why this dime holds value. First, its age makes it collectible because coins from the early 1990s are not always saved in large numbers by the general public. Second, its condition is the key factor in determining just how valuable it can be. Third, the demand among collectors for completing Roosevelt dime sets ensures that this coin will always have a place in the numismatic market. The 1990 Roosevelt dime with the D mint mark may not be as rare as some older silver dimes, but it still represents value beyond its face amount, especially in higher grades. Collectors often talk about how modern coins can still surprise us with their value, and this dime is a great example. It proves that you do not have to find an ancient coin or a 19th century piece to hold something valuable in your hands. A simple dime from 1990 with a D mint mark can be worth more than you think, and that is why it is so important to slow down, look closely at your coins, and recognize that value can be found even in the smallest denominations. When you study coins like the 1990 Roosevelt dime, you begin to appreciate the combination of history, design, and rarity. The portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse continue to symbolize liberty, strength, and peace. But beyond the design, the story lies in the year, the mint mark, and the survival of coins in high quality. Each detail adds to the collectible interest, and each coin tells us something about the era it came from. By now, you can clearly see why the 1990 Roosevelt dime with the D mint mark is valuable. It is not just a piece of pocket change. It is a collectible coin that carries history, significance, and potential worth. Collectors will always keep an eye out for these coins because they know that over time, coins like this only become harder to find in pristine condition. That scarcity adds to their desirability and reinforces their value in the coin collecting world. So, the next time you come across a dime from 1990, check carefully for that D mint mark. If it is there, and if the coin is in excellent condition, you might be holding a valuable piece of U.S. coinage history. This is the kind of coin that teaches us to always pay attention to small details and reminds us that value can be hiding in plain sight. The 1990 Roosevelt dime with a D mint mark is valuable, and it is a perfect reminder that even the smallest coins can tell the biggest stories in American numismatics. Next up, the 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is one of those small coins that carries a big story. At first glance, it may seem like an ordinary dime that has been in circulation for decades, but once you take a closer look, you realize this coin is valuable and highly collectible. This dime comes from the Philadelphia Mint, which did not place a mint mark on its coins during that year. That detail makes it important for coin collectors, because coins without a mint mark are part of the unique identity of the Philadelphia Mint's production. The 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is more than just 10 cents. It represents history, scarcity in higher grades, and collectible value. That is why you should stay with me throughout this entire discussion, because this dime may be worth more than you realize. The Roosevelt dime has been in production since 1946, introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt after his passing. From the very beginning, this coin series has held a central role in American coinage. Over the decades, the design has remained familiar, but every year and every mint mark combination tells its own story. The 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark tells us the story of Philadelphia coinage in the late 1970s, a time when millions of coins were struck for daily use, yet very few were preserved in perfect condition. That is the first reason this dime is valuable. A coin that has survived from 1977 in excellent condition is not easy to find in circulation today, and collectors pay attention to that. When we talk about the 1977 dime without a mint mark, we must also talk about the importance of condition. Most of these coins went directly into circulation and have seen decades of use. They were tossed in pockets, purses, cash registers, and vending machines. Because of that, most examples show wear and tear. But if you find one that has been kept safe, perhaps in a collection or accidentally set aside, it can be worth far more than its face value. The better the condition, the more valuable the coin becomes. This is one of the main reasons collectors hunt for the 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark. Another reason this dime is valuable is that it fills an essential spot in Roosevelt dime collections. Collectors who are working on building complete sets need the 1977 Philadelphia dime, and they prefer examples in the highest possible quality. Even though many were minted, it is the scarcity of top-grade coins that makes this dime special. The combination of date, mint mark absence, and condition drives demand. That is why the 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is not just another coin. It is a collectible piece of numismatic history. Think about this for a moment. A coin struck in 1977 has now been around for nearly half a century. That alone gives it historical significance. But add in the fact that it has no mint mark and becomes desirable for set builders, and you begin to see the bigger picture. This dime is valuable not only in terms of money, but also in terms of what it represents. It connects us to a period in American history, to the Philadelphia Mint's production practices, and to the enduring legacy of Franklin Roosevelt on U.S. coinage. Many people who handle coins every day never stop to look closely at what they have. They spend a 1977 dime as though it were nothing more than 10 cents. But collectors know better. They know that valuable coins can be hiding in plain sight, and the 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is an excellent example of this truth. This is why coin collecting remains such a fascinating hobby. It rewards those who pay attention to details, and it reminds us that even small coins can carry big value. When you take the time to study this dime, you also learn more about coin production in the 1970s. The Philadelphia Mint produced a huge number of dimes that year, but only a fraction survive in the kind of condition that collectors want. That means every time you come across one, you should stop and examine it carefully. Is it clean? Does it have sharp details? Has it been preserved well? If the answer is yes, then you may be holding a valuable piece that deserves to be kept, not spent. Collectors appreciate the Roosevelt dime series because it is approachable yet full of hidden treasures. The 1977 dime without a mint mark is one of those treasures. It proves that value does not always come from rarity alone. It also comes from condition, demand, and history. This dime combines all three. Even though many were minted, the ones that remain in top condition are desirable, and that makes them valuable. As you think about your own coins, or coins you may come across and change, remember that details matter. The date matters, the mint mark matters, and the overall condition matters. The 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark may be overlooked by most, but to the trained eye of a collector, it is a valuable coin. And the longer time passes, the harder it will be to find high-quality examples. That scarcity is what makes it even more appealing to collectors today. By now, you can see why the 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is a coin worth knowing about. It has historical importance, collectible demand, and potential value that goes well beyond face value. This dime is a reminder that valuable coins are still out there, waiting to be discovered by those who know what to look for. The next time you have a handful of change, check carefully. You never know when a valuable coin like this might be hiding in plain sight. The 1977 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is proof that even the smallest coins can hold great value, and it is a perfect reminder of why coin collecting is such a rewarding pursuit. Next up, the 1973 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is one of those small coins that tells a much bigger story than most people realize. At first glance, it looks like a typical dime that you might get back in change at the grocery store. Most people would spend it without hesitation, never giving it a second thought. But coin collectors know that the 1973 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is valuable, not only because of its age, but also because of the history behind it and the collectible demand that continues to grow. In this detailed discussion, we're going to talk about why the 1973 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is valuable, why it is important for collectors, and why you should never underestimate the coins that pass through your hands in everyday life. The Roosevelt dime series began in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had passed away the year before. His portrait was placed on the dime because of his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, and also because of his support for the March of Dimes, a campaign that worked to fight polio. Since its first year, the Roosevelt dime has remained an essential part of U.S. coinage. The design has become familiar to every American, but collectors understand that each date, each mint mark, and each small variation can make a big difference in value. The 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, is a perfect example of that. It looks simple, but it is valuable, and that is why collectors keep searching for it. Now, why does the absence of a mint mark matter? When we talk about the 1973 dime, without a mint mark, we are talking about coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint. During this time, Philadelphia did not place a mint mark on its dimes. That detail is important because it sets these coins apart from those produced at other mints, such as Denver or San Francisco. Collectors pay attention to these details because the mint mark tells the story of where the coin came from. For 1973, the absence of a mint mark makes the coin identifiable as a Philadelphia issue, and that adds collectible interest. But the real value of the 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, comes from more than just where it was minted. It comes from survival, condition, and demand. This coin has now been around for more than 50 years. In that time, millions have been spent, worn down, lost, or damaged. The dimes that remain in circulation today are often scratched, faded, or heavily used. Collectors, however, are looking for examples in the best possible condition, coins that have sharp details, bright luster, and little to no wear. Those are the coins that become valuable. A dime from 1973, without a mint mark, that looks like it just left the mint is worth far more than one that has been circulating for decades. That is why collectors take the time to examine their change closely. They know that valuable coins like the 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, are out there. It may not be as rare as a 19th century coin or a silver dime from before 1965, but its value lies in condition and demand. Collectors who are building complete Roosevelt dime sets need this coin, and they are willing to pay more for examples in high grade. This constant demand ensures that the 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, will always hold collectible value. Think about the bigger picture here. Every dime from 1973 has been through decades of circulation. Some were used thousands of times in everyday transactions. Others may have been saved by accident in jars or drawers, kept untouched for years. The coins that avoided circulation are the ones that stand out today. When collectors find a 1973 dime without a mint mark in pristine condition, they know they have found something valuable. That coin is not just worth 10 cents. It is worth several times more to the right collector. The Roosevelt dime series teaches us the importance of details. To most people, all dimes look the same. But collectors know that the date, the mint mark, the condition, and even small variations can make one dime worth far more than another. The 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, is a shining example of this. It may not carry a mint mark, but that very absence is what defines it as a Philadelphia issue, and combined with its age and scarcity in top condition, it becomes a valuable coin. It is also important to remember that numismatic value does not come from rarity alone. Demand plays a huge role. The Roosevelt dime series is widely collected because it is accessible. Many people can start collecting these dimes, and they often try to build complete sets by year and mint. That means every date and every mint mark, or lack of mint mark, is needed. The 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark, fills a critical spot in those sets. This demand keeps its value strong and ensures that collectors will continue to seek it out for years to come. Another reason this dime is valuable is the history it represents. A coin from 1973 takes us back more than half a century. It connects us to the early 1970s, to the people who first used these dimes, and to the long history of the Roosevelt dime series. Each coin is a piece of history you can hold in your hand. Collectors appreciate that connection to the past, and they are willing to pay for coins that preserve it in the best condition possible. That is why the 1973 Roosevelt dime, without a mint mark is not just a coin. It is a collectible artifact. When you take the time to study coins like this, you realize that value can be found in the smallest denominations. A dime is only worth 10 cents in circulation, but when it carries collectible demand, it can be worth much more. This is why coin collecting is such a fascinating hobby. It teaches us to pay attention, to look closely, and to understand the stories behind everyday objects. The 1973 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is valuable because it combines history, scarcity in high grade, and strong collector demand. By now, it should be clear why this dime is worth more than its face value. It is a coin that collectors actively seek out, a coin that represents history, and a coin that grows more valuable as time passes and fewer high-quality examples remain. The next time you come across a dime from 1973, stop and take a closer look. If it does not have a mint mark, and if it is in excellent condition, you may be holding a valuable coin. Do not just spend it without checking, because coins like this remind us that value often hides in plain sight. The 1973 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark is proof that even the smallest coins can tell big stories and carry significant value. Next up, the 1987 Roosevelt 1 dime with the D mint mark is one of those fascinating coins that might look ordinary at first glance, but it carries both history and collectible appeal that makes it far more interesting than just its face value of 10 cents. If you've ever come across a 1987 Roosevelt dime minted in Denver, then you may already know that these coins can be valuable depending on condition, rarity factors, and collector demand. In this video, we are going to explore the story of the 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark in full detail. We'll talk about why it was minted, how many were made, what makes them collectible, what errors to watch for, and why coin collectors continue to pay attention to these dimes. Stay with me until the end, because I'll be covering everything you need to know about the 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark and why this coin can be so valuable. The Roosevelt dime series began in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Roosevelt was beloved for his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, but he was also closely associated with the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio. After his passing in 1945, the United States Mint decided to honor him by placing his portrait on the dime. Since then, the Roosevelt dime has been one of the longest-running coin designs in American history, and it remains in circulation today. By 1987, the dime had already been in circulation for over 40 years, and the Denver Mint was responsible for producing a very large number of these coins with the D mint mark. Now, what makes the 1987 Roosevelt dime with the D mint mark valuable? The first and most important factor is condition. Like most modern U.S. coins, the majority of 1987 Denver minted dimes were struck for everyday use, meaning millions went straight into circulation. Once coins are in circulation, they pick up scratches, wear, and marks from use. Finding one of these coins in pocket change is common, but finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is much harder. Collectors are always looking for high-quality coins, and a 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark in mint state condition can be worth far more than face value. Mintage numbers are also important. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes in 1987. While that number might seem high, it's not just about how many were made. It's about how many survive in collectible condition today. Most people never saved these dimes when they were new, and many have been damaged, worn out, or lost over time. As the number of preserved high-quality coins shrinks, the value of well-preserved examples goes up. This is why coin collectors and investors pay close attention to even common-date Roosevelt dimes like the 1987 D. Another reason this coin can be valuable is because of error varieties. Error coins occur when something unusual happens during the minting process. With the 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark, collectors have reported error examples such as off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, and other unusual variations. These errors can turn an ordinary dime into a highly valuable collectible. Depending on the severity of the error and the demand from collectors, an errored dime from 1987 with D mint mark can sell for many times its face value. The silver question is another aspect that collectors consider. though it's important to note that by 1987, Roosevelt dimes were no longer made of silver. From 1946 to 1964, all Roosevelt dimes were struck in 90% silver. After 1965, the mint switched to a copper-nickel clad composition, which is the same metal used for most circulating dimes today. That means that the 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark is a clad coin, not silver. However, its collectible value doesn't come from silver content. It comes from rarity, condition, and collector interest. Some people still confuse post-1964 dimes with silver coins, but the 1987 D is valuable for entirely different reasons. Collectors often assemble complete sets of Roosevelt dimes by year and mint mark. For anyone building a collection, the 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark is a necessary piece. Even though it may not be the rarest dime in the series, collectors want every date and mint mark to complete the set. This demand helps keep the coin valuable, especially in high grades. For example, a circulated 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark may only be worth its face value, but an uncirculated example, or one with a special error, can be worth much more to a collector. Another interesting fact about the 1987 dime is that it represents a specific moment in U.S. coinage history. By the late 1980s, the U.S. Mint was refining its production process, using modern equipment that made coinage more uniform. Even so, errors and variations still slip through. Collectors value this because it gives them something to hunt for, those rare error coins that stand out among the millions of ordinary strikes. That's why coin roll hunters often go through boxes of dimes from banks, searching for hidden treasures, like a high-grade 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark or a unique error variety. When it comes to values, we know that average circulated examples of the 1987 D dime are usually worth 10 cents. But in mint state condition, these coins can bring in several dollars, sometimes much more depending on quality. Error coins, as mentioned before, can fetch significantly higher premiums. Collectors pay close attention to auction results, and there have been cases where certain examples of Roosevelt dimes from this era sold for far more than anyone expected because of condition rarity or dramatic errors. That's why it's always worth checking your 1987 Roosevelt dimes carefully before spending or exchanging them. The important thing to remember is that every coin has a story. The 1987 Roosevelt 1 dime with the D mint mark tells us about the Denver Mint's role in U.S. coinage, about the durability of clad coinage, and about the ongoing appeal of collecting modern coins. Even though it's small, even though millions were made, this dime still holds value and significance. It's more than just pocket change. It's a part of U.S. numismatic history, and collectors everywhere recognize its importance. So if you happen to have a 1987 Roosevelt dime with the D mint mark, take a closer look. Check its condition, examine it for errors, and think about how it fits into the bigger story of Roosevelt dimes. While most people would overlook a coin like this, true collectors understand that even ordinary coins can become valuable under the right circumstances. This is why the 1987 Roosevelt dime with D mint mark is worth learning about, worth saving, and worth adding to your collection. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. As you've seen, Roosevelt dimes may look small, but many of them hold surprising value, especially when you take the time to look at mint marks, dates, and condition. If you found this video helpful, I highly recommend you go back and watch my previous video on the Washington quarter dollar coin, because that coin also carries incredible history and can be very valuable to collectors. Don't miss out on learning about both Roosevelt dimes and Washington quarters, because together they make up an important part of U.S. coin collecting. And before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, so you never miss another video on valuable coins, rare dates, and hidden treasures that could be sitting in your pocket change.